I'm EZRAH reporting on the hottest issues and the biggest stories. This is the Manila Times. The Makati versus Taguig turf wars has reached its boiling point as both mayors Binay and Lani Cayetano asserted their positions in the 14 schools within the disputed area, right before the beginning of classes. Luckily, the education department stepped in and mediated in time for the opening of classes. But this is no longer a dispute. Taguig has won. In a resolution dated June 26, 2023, the Supreme Court upheld the decision of the lower courts, which meant that 10 barangays, which was previously part of Makati, are now officially part of Taguig, based on the map of PSU 2031. Because of this, Taguig may now exercise jurisdiction or governance over these contested area. However, within these 10 barangays are 14 schools, Ospital ng Makati, Fire Station, and Makati City Jail, important infrastructure which was paid for by the taxpayers of Makati City, caught in the middle. The ruling of the Supreme Court was not clear about the ownership of the titles of the schools, hospitals, and other buildings owned by Makati. How can this be settled? Here to share his insights is the University of the Philippines College of Law professor, Justice Rogelio Quevedo. Welcome to the Manila Times, sir. Sir, for my first question, all government agencies, even the LGUs of Makati and Taguig, are honoring the decision of the Supreme Court, of course. Important infrastructures such as the 14 schools, Ospital ng Makati, University of Makati, and even Makati City Jail are owned by the Makati government but are sitting on Taguig's territory. So my question is, who has jurisdiction over these institutions?
Well, there is a very clear precedent on this issue. If you are aware, the Manila Boys Town is located in Marikina, and the Manila South Cemetery is located in Makati. So they are still being operated by the city of Manila, although they are located in Marikina in the case of Boys Town, and in the case of the Manila South Cemetery, it is located in the city of Makati. So there should be no legal confusion on that issue because there are already precedents and they are still existing now.
Sir, you're saying that even though these schools, even the university, and as well as the fire stations and the city jail, may continue to operate under the city government of Makati, even though these have been on Taguig's territory.
If we can apply by analogy the situation of Boys Town in Marikina and the Manila South Cemetery in Makati, then if the circumstances will be the same, then they can be operated by the respective local government that owns them. The location is immaterial because, as I mentioned a while, the Manila Boys Town continues to be operated by the LGU of Manila, and the Manila South Cemetery is still operated by the city of Manila. Kaya nga, if you have an accident, a traffic accident in Manila South Cemetery, which occurred to me before, about 10 years ago, or probably, we had to go to the Traffic Bureau of Manila because even the national government agencies recognizes the ownership of these real properties. So in that case, Boys Town is still operated by Marikina. South Cemetery is still operated by the city of Manila. So that should actually answer any supposed legal confusion. The city of Manila, the city of Makati, if it can show that these schools are really owned by the LGU of Makati, then it can continue to operate. But the question is, who really owns them? In the case of Boys Town, there's no doubt that Boys Town is owned by the City of Manila. In the case of the South Cemetery, there is no doubt that it is owned by the City of Manila. So that will be another question that might really reach the Supreme Court again. Who owns these properties? But as far as properties outside its own territorial jurisdiction, then there is no doubt the City of Manila the City of Makati, the City of Makati can continue to operate and own properties even beyond its jurisdiction, even beyond its territorial jurisdiction. Because as you will remember, academically speaking, the LGU has also governmental powers and has corporate powers. In the operation of the Manila South Cemetery and the Manila Boys Town, the LGU of Manila has been operating it in the exercise of its corporate powers. Ngayon, kung ang i-assert mo na is governmental powers, then it will be the LGU of Taguig that will have jurisdiction. So, as I want to emphasize, we must clearly point out who is the owner of these properties. They're being located outside the territorial jurisdiction is already immaterial, but the ownership must be completely delineated.
Sir, on your professional legal opinion, so these institutions, Makati City Government may continue to operate these institutions even though they are in Taguig's territory. So Makati Mayor Binay cleared that she actually have these titles to these infrastructure. So these are owned by the Makati City Government. And like you said, she may continue to operate these infrastructures. But she also said something about compensation or payments for the buildings or infrastructure from Mayor Lani Cayetano if she is to exercise her governance or jurisdiction over these schools, mostly schools, So, how can this be settled? Does the Makati city government need to get compensation from Taguig, or does Taguig need to charge rent from
If
Makati?
ownership can be is clearly settled, then the local government can actually get compensation. So if the ownership is in the name of the LGU of Makati, then the LGU of Makati can actually sell these properties. Now, the contention that this belongs to the people, parang hindi, parang off tangent yata yon, because LGUs have a right to be protected also under, they also have the constitutional right to own property. Remember that LGUs have also their own juridical personality. So it's a matter of the two LGUs settling the matter as if it is a transaction between two private parties. Yun nga lang, that's why I want to emphasize, you have to differentiate between the exercise of governmental powers and the exercise of corporate powers. Ngayon, yung ownership dito ng City of Makati and City of Taguig, that can be a novel issue because they might say that these are not corporate powers but governmental powers. So both may be correct. So the legal question that might eventually reach the Supreme Court is whether the schools are an exercise of corporate powers or governmental powers. In the case of the South Cemetery, diba? That is clearly corporate powers ang pagmamay-ari doon sa South Cemetery. Operation of the Manila Boys Town, that is clearly corporate powers. Ngayon, kung sino ang, let's say, in-assert yung mga crime, governmental powers yun. So that will be a different story. So given the circumstances, we have to really clarify between corporate powers, and governmental powers. Ownership of the school might be contended as exercise of governmental, di ba? Providing education to the youth. So each will have his own reason. The Supreme Court will finally have to settle that. But at first glance, as I said, kung clear yung delineation katulad ng pag-operate ng Boys Town at saka ng South Cemetery, maliwanag. Kahit na those properties are inside the territory of Makati, the City of Manila continues to operate them.
Those are very good points, sir. Ano? So, going back to what happened po kasi, this was during Brigada de Escuela. So, when Mayor Lani Cayetano entered the schools without a written consent or um, a writ from the court, and she entered the schools, but then Mayor Binay had posted that these are owned by the Makati City government. So I guess both mayors had good points. So Mayor Abby Binay exercising their corporational powers, and Mayor Lani Cayetano was exercising her governmental powers. So I guess there's a bit of a gray area din doon, ano, Justice.
Meron pang isang issue dyan. Remember that the city mayor has the right of visitorial powers over any establishment. Kaya that might also become an issue, the exercise of visitorial powers by the chief executive of the LGU.
I see. So they cannot refuse Mayor Lani Cayetano from entering the schools, and they cannot ban her from them. She can enter whenever she wants. Tama
If
po.
the territory is, as ruled by the Supreme Court, now belongs to the LGU of Taguig, then the mayor of the LGU of Taguig has visitorial powers over the territory of the LGU. But again, we must distinguish and delineate whether her visit is an exercise of the visitorial powers of the chief executive of the LGU, or she is exercising the governmental powers. Diba? Pagka yung governmental powers niya, visitorial powers, diba? Visitorial rights. Ngayon, yung to operate the school, to operate kasi if it is private property, then it belongs to the registered owner. So the immediate answer is who has title to it. Unless the Supreme Court decides with finality ordering the transfer of the title to these properties, as you said, these properties are titled in the name of the LG of Makati, then it is clearly within the powers of the LG of Makati. However, I gave you that opening. The chief executive of a local government has visitorial powers to go inside establishments and exercise this within reasonable hours. So that would mean during business hours. And hindi naman siya magko-conduct ng unreasonable search and seizure. Di ba? Pagka nag-conduct siya ng search and seizure, kailangan mo na ng court order to issue a search warrant. That's why we have to distinguish really these matters. Di ba? Pagka magko-conduct na siya ng search and seizure, you need already to get a search warrant. Pero kung exercise lang of visitorial powers, that is very clear under the local government code. Merong visitorial powers ang chief executive ng LGU.
That's very insightful, Justice. Ano? Is there any other orders that they need from the Supreme Court to exercise their jurisdiction from their, of course, the ownership of the buildings and their territorial jurisdiction? Is there any written order from the court needed, or
Then sa territorial jurisdiction, which has already been resolved by the Supreme Court, may visitorial powers ang chief executive ng LGU of Taguig. Ngayon naman, since the titles are still in the name of the LGU of Makati, the Mayor of Makati as the Chief Executive of the LGU of Makati can still exercise. Parang siya pa rin ang chairman of the board and chief executive. Di ba? Kasi, as I mentioned to you, there is a difference between corporate powers and governmental powers. Owning these properties, owning this, operating the schools. Of course, the Department of Education, Culture and Sport, the Department of Education also will have something to say here because remember, the school administrators answer to the superintendent of schools. Kaya marami silang dapat i-resolve. Mas maganda pag-usapan muna nila, and I am sure that Mayor Abi is a lawyer, also a graduate of the UP College of Law. Kaya she must also know where she is coming from.
Thank you so much, Justice, for shedding light on the matter. University of the Philippines College of Law Professor Justice Rogelio Quevedo. Maraming salamat po.
Salamat po sa pagkakataon na to.